Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call to order our meeting of the Health, Environment, and Community Engagement Committee. Thank you all for being here. I'm Cam Gordon. I'm chair of the committee, and today I'm joined by council members Alondra Cano, Elizabeth Glidden, Lisa Bender, and Jacob Fry. We have a quorum, so we can do our committee's business. When it's interesting, everyone decided to sit on this side because the camera usually shows you there, doesn't it? Sorry to note that. Good. Well, we have a lot of good, important things to talk about in our 7 items today. We have 1 public hearing, then we'll have 3 consent items and 3 discussion items. I think we'll move right ahead with our public hearing item, which is the short-term food ordinance. And I believe we'll have a brief presentation from Mr. Reinberg. Welcome very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Gordon and everyone else on the council for allowing me to be here today. We're talking about short-term food ordinance revision, specifically amending Title 10 of the Minneapolis Code of Ordinances relating to the food code in 4 different locations, Chapter 186, 188, 201, and 202. That touches general administration, licensing, public markets, and the municipal market as well. As you can see here by these nice photos taken locally, we have 2 separate categories of vendors in the city of Minneapolis that do similar, very, very similar work tasks. And you can see on the left, we have a Minneapolis farmers market vendor, and they would be right now licensed under a market distributor. They're reselling fruits and vegetables. And so they have a separate kind of license just to operate at farmers markets and only at farmers markets. On the right, you can see some vendors at our Stone Arch Bridge Festival selling all sorts of foods and fun things there. But a lot of the vendors at the Stone Arch Bridge Festival, they would be what are considered seasonal vendors or seasonal food vendors. And that is a license type from the city that allows them to work at all sanctioned city events. So multiple events throughout the year, block parties, community gatherings, that sort of thing. So what we really want to revise here is to essentially simplify our licenses and fees. This supports our Minneapolis Business Made Simple initiative, and the main task here would be to eliminate farmers market specific licenses and reclassify all of those as seasonal food permits. So in that way, all farmers market vendors would then become seasonal food vendors. And this would actually allow vendors to participate in more events without any additional cost or double or dual licensing or permitting. And the seasonals and farmers market vendors, they would be subject to the same sort of rigorous review that would happen before approval of any of these permits. You can see now we have a little chart here of how the fee schedule currently works. Before we have currently we have the market manufacturer and market distributor licenses. Those are to operate at farmers markets only. Market manufacturer has more on-site preparation of food, but they're essentially the same process, same fee schedule. You see that there's a plan review fee, new license surcharge, an annual renewal fee. So for the first year total for a market manufacturer and market distributor ends up being about $374. The annual license fee could be a little bit different depending on what time of the year it started. There might be some proration figured into there, but for a full year, it's $177. And for the first year, there's the new surcharge and a plan review fee. As you can see below, our seasonal, which we currently have for events, it's only for special events only. There's no plan review fee. There's no new license surcharge. There is an annual renewal of $232. And so per year, you'll see a $232 cost. So our proposal is to have everything be part of the seasonal vendor category. So that would expand the areas where these vendors are allowed to work, both farmers markets and seasonal events, without having to get licensing or permitting for both. There would be no plan review fee, no license surcharge, and the same fee as the seasonal we have right now, $232. And so that would greatly expand the access to business those entrepreneurs or vendors would have. So other goals of this proposed ordinance revision is to reflect new language from the state code into the city ordinances, bring them in line. We had to put in our exemption for the product of the farm vendors and cottage food vendors from the State Department of Agriculture. We had to update our language on food product sampling and demonstration. We had to make sure the dates were in line for operating times, and that the short-term food vendors had the same operating day clarification as indicated by the state law. And we reorganized the text for clarity, and we made sure that there was a method that the health department could recoup costs of inspections, follow-up enforcement for a license category from the Department of Agriculture called the Retail Mobile Food Handler License. So they're telling us that those need to be inspected and reviewed, and so that was a way to recoup cost by making sure in the language of the ordinance allowed them to be listed as seasonal food vendors. So, and there's my contact information.
Thank you very much. Do committee members have any questions? I don't see any questions right now.
Okay.
Thanks for the presentation. I noticed that the presentation that we had online was a little bit different than the one you presented, so I'm assuming that'll get updated with the clerks. I appreciate having the fees listed on there. That was good information.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm then going to open the public hearing. Maybe there'll be questions yet to come. I'm not sure if anybody's here to speak on this matter. I don't see anybody here. So then I'll leave it open for a couple more seconds, and then I'll close the public hearing now. So thank you very much. And now we have the ordinance before us. I'll move the ordinance, and I also just want to acknowledge Councilmember Palmisano's efforts on this. Actually, there were some farmers markets in the 13th Ward that were especially concerned about this and their ability to get food vendors there and not, and some of the obstacles in the way. So I was delighted to co-author this with her, and also really appreciate the work that staff put into this, getting it all done. Seeing no questions or comments on that, then I will ask all those in favor of this new ordinance to please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? That motion carries. Then we'll move right into our consent items. There are 3 consent items on the agenda. One is a contract amendment with the Family Partnership for Services for Victims of Sex Trafficking and Commercial Sexual Exploitation. This is actually something that came up a few weeks ago in our committee, and Councilmember Cano noticed that we didn't have all the funding that we had approved in the budget, and so this will bring that up to where we approved in the budget. This is sort of the third installment of the $75,000. The second consent item, third item on the agenda, is authorizing an agreement with health partners to provide insurance payments for services billed through the school-based clinics. And the third consent item is accepting a grant from the Mississippi Watershed Management Organization for $19,200 to hire summer interns to assist in erosion control and enforcement. Would anyone like to discuss any of those items? Seeing no committee members wanting to discuss them, then I'll move the consent agenda. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Those items are approved then. Now we'll move to our discussion items, and the first discussion item we have before us is the annual report from the Homegrown Minneapolis Food Council. And I'll ask Tamara Downs-Schwei to come forward and begin our presentation. I know we'll also have, I think, Ms. Nolan and Powell presenting too. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and City Council members. I'm Tasha Powell, one of the co-chairs of Homegrown Minneapolis Food Council. I am honored to present the annual report for the Food Council to you today, along with my co-chair, Devon, and the Homegrown Minneapolis coordinator, Tamara. Homegrown Minneapolis has been a citywide initiative since 2009, expanding our community ability to grow, process, distribute, eat, and compost more healthy, sustainable, locally grown foods. The third phase of Homegrown Minneapolis started with the formation of the Food Council in 2012. The Food Council is an official advisory body for the City of Minneapolis with a unique co-ownership structure reflecting the city-community partnership. The Food Council uses several strategies to achieve its bold vision and mission. 2016 was the 5th year for the Food Council and experienced many exciting accomplishments together. The Homegrown Minneapolis Food Council is a 25-member team that includes 17 appointed community representatives. Community members in our group represent the spectrum of the locally food scene, including farmers, chefs and restaurants, food advocacy organizations, farmers markets, co-ops, educators, and food processors. We have 6 city representatives on the Food Council, as well as a staff representative from the Park and Recreation Board, who oversees implementations of the Urban Agriculture Plan, and a staff representative from the Minneapolis Public School, who oversees the Farm to School program. We appreciate their partnership, as well as many other staff who support the local food initiative we are working with together. While there is officially the city council members on the Food Council, we appreciate the key role the entire city council has played in support and expansion of our local food system. And now to share recent highlights of our thriving local food scene and homegrown Minneapolis accomplishments, Tamara.
Thank you, Tasha. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. I am Tamara Downschwei, and serving as local food policy and homegrown Minneapolis coordinator in the sustainability office. Honored to serve in this role and work in partnership with everybody on this important initiative. Our local food system continues to experience amazing growth, and in this past year, we had nearly 300 community gardens, nearly 60 of which were on city land, thanks to partnership from the city and the committee here. We also still love our backyard animals and now have more than 90 permitted beehives and more than 280 chicken permits in the city. We are thrilled to anticipate the opening of a couple new grocery stores, the North Market and the Worth Co-op on North Side, later this year, serving many more residents with healthy local food. At the city level, the advocacy the city and community do together through the Homegrown Minneapolis Food Council had more success through several different ordinance changes that from zoning changes to garden program expansion to other opportunities. We've allowed for more expanded growing provision sales of healthy local food throughout the city. We were also busy at the state level. The Good Food Access Fund is an exciting new legislative opportunity that is currently in the process of deciding local projects or projects throughout the state to serve community members who are experiencing food access barriers through healthy food retail, and food council members were involved in some successful advocacy supporting that legislation, as well as support for a report produced by the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, which was in response to efforts to support urban ag throughout the city and resulted in a great report that's available on the website. We've also stayed very actively involved in the Minnesota Food Charter Network, which is really been a wonderful structure and framework for our city as well as people throughout the state to continue advancing local food system work together. Farmers markets. We all love farmers markets. And Homegrown Minneapolis has been a proud lead partner on the new Farmers Markets of Minneapolis Collaborative. This includes participation of myself, Food Council members Devon Nolan, Miguel Gable, and 3 other market managers and faculty from the university in the leadership team of this effort, which represents all the farmers markets of Minneapolis, including with a new strategic plan that was developed in the past year, implementation of citywide market metrics collection, and a new collaborative marketing campaign, which is being launched this year with support from as well many city staff and departments in this effort. And now to tell you more about the farmers markets and the work of our Food Council co-chair, Devon Nolan. Thanks.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Tamara, and thank you, Mr. Chair and City Council members. I'm Devon Nolan, and I'm honored to serve as the co-chair for the Homegrown Minneapolis Food Policy Council for another year. If you're interested in staying connected to our efforts around the Farmers Markets of Minneapolis Collaborative, check us out on social media or look for highlights in our Homegrown Minneapolis newsletter. Some highlights around community engagement. We've connected with community members through event tabling and presentations at community events around the city. We reach more than 3,000 people each month through our Homegrown Minneapolis e-newsletter. We also host an annual open house. We had a wonderful Homegrown Minneapolis open house event December 1st, and it was held at Seward Montessori and hosted in partnership with Minneapolis Public Schools. We presented 6 Homegrown Hero Awards to community food champions. And you'll see on the picture there, it was a diverse group of folks and working in all sectors of our food system. We operate under a working group and task force structure. That is where the bulk of our work gets accomplished. Our local food business innovation working group is looking to create innovative opportunities within the restaurant industry and looking at bringing more local foods from farmers to restaurants through use of space and alcohol licensing. Our food donations task force is looking at education, outreach opportunities, and working with Minneapolis Health Department and Hennepin County to understand the rules behind food regulations as well as the Good Samaritan law. And this is a great opportunity to address food waste. As you probably know, 40% of the food that we purchase is wasted. And that doesn't matter socioeconomic status. It's just something we do as humans. Our land access working group is working on their recommendations to the city, which include increasing staff time for the garden program administration, opening land from other departments, in addition to CPED for lease, and offering lots for sale to urban growers. This group greatly appreciates the new partnership with Public Works Department through the recent addition of lots available for garden lease and looks forward to ongoing collaboration. This is where that authentic community government partnership works. Our local food procurement working group is celebrating signing on to the Good Food Purchasing Program, who was identified their first champion institution in Minneapolis Public Schools. So really excited about that partnership. Thank you again for all your support for the local food system and partnership with the Food Council. And we're honored to continue to build healthier communities together with your support. Any questions?
Not seeing any questions right now. I have the opportunity to serve on the Food Council, so I've enjoyed seeing the work progress and being part of it and coming forward. Maybe you could just tell us if you think there are any big challenges ahead. You talked a little bit about at the state legislature and some progress that happened and also some success you've had with the city in terms of getting access to more gardens. But what do you think will be the biggest challenge next year?
I don't know if you have any things in mind. As you know, Kim, Councilmember Gordon, we tend to take an asset-based lens to everything. Obviously, there will be challenges, but I think we have a tremendous amount of momentum and have some aligned strategic priorities that work throughout our city and, as you can see, statewide. So really being intentional about figuring out how we can leverage resources across different networks and policy councils, I would say, is an opportunity. I don't know if you want to add anything.
I'm aware that our health department and many other partners, including in the nonprofits and the city, are dependent on some grant funding that comes from the city, it's from the state and federal government, as well as other local foundations. And I think just in solidarity with each other in this work, making sure that we can preserve that funding while we're continuing to try to grow our work is going to be pretty important. There's a lot of important funds for our activities that are kind of being looked at the state legislature in this session, including market books and SHIP and the Good Food Access Fund, as well as others. So we've got some really amazing partners in the health department particularly, who we know that support is pretty critical too. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And I would just say to my colleagues, if you have any initiatives that you're thinking about, related to food that's going on in the city, I think bringing them to the Food Council early and getting support for those or getting advice really makes a big difference, and I would encourage you to do so. So thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. Great to hear from you all. And our action on this is to receive and file the presentation and the report. So I will make that motion. Seeing no discussion, I'll ask all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. That motion carries. Then we have our next presentation, and This is our report from our Community Environmental Advisory Commission. And I'm not sure, but this could be one of the last presentations that Ms. Gail Press will make to our committee, at least in her formal capacity. Perhaps she'll return later. So Gail, are you going to get to speak at all? Well, we sure are enormously grateful for you working quietly to set up the scene for Ricardo, and also for all that quiet work you've done helping the city become a national leader in sustainability. So take it away, Ricardo. Welcome.
Council members, my name is Ricardo McCurley, and I'm the vice chair of the Community Environmental Advisory Commission. I also live in Ward 12, and well, we did a lot last year. It was my first year on the commission, and it was really amazing seeing kind of everything listed out as we were preparing this. A couple notes. One of the things that we accomplished was if you let's go ahead and go to the next one. If you look at our background, we've had a couple name changes, and last year we formally acknowledged the most recent name change from Citizens Environmental Advisory Committee to Community Environmental Advisory Commission, and the City Council actually approved that back in 2014. We appreciate that because we looked at it and citizens wasn't as inclusive as we wanted it to be. I know the commission represents more than just the citizens. We represent businesses. We represent residents in all capacities. So we're glad to have the name change finally approved. And looking at our current membership, wanted to acknowledge that we've got some vacancies. One of the things that we were looking at specifically is when we looked at our representation, we're lacking in North Minneapolis when we talk about geographic representation, which is not necessarily the most important, but is an important element that we want to focus on, or that we've tried to focus on in the commission. So also specifically people of color, we want more of that representation on the committee right now. We have a lot of really smart and talented people in specific fields, but we want to make sure that we have diversity in all capacities. So if you know anyone, please let us know. Moving on to our accomplishments. The list is there, but I wanted to highlight a couple things. One of them happened at the end of last year. That was we worked in conjunction with other commissions on the recycled tire issue, which is coming up. And it's a really fascinating, multifaceted, complex issue that affects not only adults, but children, people in all parts of the city, given how prevalent the shredded tires and shredded recycled rubber products are in our schools. So to work on that and to work on it in conjunction with other commissions was really great and important work. We did a lot of environmental justice work as well, focusing on things about tracking climate change vulnerability, as well as analyzing the state's environmental justice policies that they've been working on. So a lot of really great stuff. We have multiple working groups that are working on a variety of things. I'll highlight just a couple of them coming out of our committees. The first one is overburdened communities. This is our environmental justice or environmental injustice, or we've wrestled with what to call it. But ultimately, looking at the negative impacts that can happen from being in an environment, and we're really proud of a lot of the social elements. However, I'll point out one thing that's been nagging at us that we're hoping to work on this year, which is non-point source air pollution. Which it's really easy to point at, or to when you've got somebody that you can, or a place or a location that is causing pollution, it's very easy to go to them. But when you've got things that are coming from moving targets, it becomes much more complicated, especially when the city is only one entity that governs those moving targets. In this case, it mostly falls on cars, and so. This year, we're really hoping to focus on that and looking at what we can do at a city level, but as well as what we can do beyond that, and then also just looking at how we're doing engagement. As we delved into looking at the community, at identifying the communities that are most affected by climate change and other environmental issues, we also realized that these are also the communities that that the city has historically had the hardest time engaging. And so how the as well as looking at the economic factors, what's going on in these communities isn't happening in a bubble. It's not just environmental toxins. It's a whole slew of things. And